Everyone, it's the Libertarian Advisor, and today I've got a prisoner's dilemma. So we all know, the movie A Beautiful Mind, John Nash. Well, he had a prisoner's dilemma where you've got two people operating on the basis of not knowing what the other person is going to choose. So on the top axis, and again, this is going to be for the 2016 election from a libertarian standpoint. So on the top axis, we have people who are like me, and that's going to be people who are libertarians, maybe above all else. They really want to, focus on auditing the Federal Reserve. They want to focus on stopping the Trans-Pacific Partnership. They want to get this country's finances back in order, and they also want to protect the Second Amendment. So we've got a nice come and take it Constitution AR-15 right there. Then on the other axis, what we have over here is going to be the libertarian or bust people. And that's going to be people who, no matter what, come hell or high water, are going to vote Libertarian Party. Now, if you live in a state where, it's definitely going to go, red or definitely going to go blue, then you have no reason not to vote Libertarian in this case, or maybe even Jill Stein. But, I wouldn't really recommend doing that, but still better than voting for Hillary. Now, you've also got a lot of people in this camp who, maybe they have different pages or blogs dedicated to being libertarians. So I think, some of them, no matter how much evidence is going to be presented, they're really just going to try focusing on, voting for the Libertarian Party no matter what, even though a lot of them know that this go around, I don't think it's going to happen, even if, especially if Gary can't even get in debates. I mean, if he can't get in debates, which I'm openly advocating that he does get into the debates, even though I'm not a huge fan of his. And just to kind of back things up, in 2012, I went to his campaign events out here in Phoenix. I was a big supporter of him, really liked a lot of things he was doing. But lately, he's come out and he's had things where he has, supported the Trans-Pacific Partnership. He supported carbon taxes. You've had Bill Weld, who has even talked about, only having 5 bullets in the chamber. So it kind of leads me to wonder, why am I voting Libertarian if some of the 3 main things, we can't even get from the Libertarian Party. So, one thing I'm kind of calling out to all the Libertarian media out there and, people prominent in the movement is, stop badgering other people in the Liberty movement. Stop thinking that, it's either your way or the highway. And maybe the problem is we need to have Gary Johnson clarify his comments on the TPP. Clarify his comments or his running mate's comments on the Second Amendment, clarify, his carbon taxes. And then I'd love to help him get him to the 15% threshold and hope he wins. But, I see all this infighting going on, and you've got people like Cass Sunstein from the Obama administration who is talking about, having, infighting within the Liberty movement to stop us coming together. And I really see that big time right now. And so we need to stop, fighting, whether it's, the Alex Joneses who are out there. I've seen a ton of stuff recently trying to attack him. But at the end of the day, you had half of Ron Paul's initial contributions came from his listeners. You've got 28 million people a week listening to him. And then we want to make him enemy number one when a lot of us, found out about the movement through him. I've seen other liberty-based people getting attacked too, but I think the people we need to focus on is Gary Johnson and why he has these different policies, and then maybe you get the people like me who'd come around. But anyways, let's get back to the prisoner's dilemma. So on the top axis, people like me, other axis, the libertarian or bust type people. So you've got vote Trump, vote Trump. And what we would get in that would be, someone that's strong in the Second Amendment, someone that's strong on ending and auditing the Federal Reserve, as he's come out and said before, no Trans-Pacific Partnership. I think he'd get our finances in order. And the bads would be, obviously, his police state tendencies, bad on civil liberties. He's controversial and might be hard to get some things done. On the other axis, we have vote Johnson and vote Trump, in which case we could split the vote. Both parties lose. We get Hillary Clinton, who's going to replace the Supreme Court, which then could jeopardize the Second Amendment, which then could basically make Congress irrelevant, which they're pretty much already irrelevant. A worse police state. She's bad in civil liberties too, even though for some reason minorities and gays seem to like her, even though, her record would state otherwise. And really, I'm referring to this as the nuclear option of getting Hillary in. And that would be the same thing for, vote Johnson, vote Johnson. If he's not even in the debates, and if 70% of Americans at this point don't even know who he is, I've got very little confidence that we're going to overcome our Stockholm syndrome and actually be able to get him in at this stage of the game. Although, I am a big libertarian and would love to see a libertarian get in there. Then the other axis, I do have a vote Johnson, and again, this is kind of playing the devil advocate that he actually does get in which case you've got Bill Weld's comments on the Second Amendment, you've got the carbon taxes, and he supports the TPP. And right now he's not at the 15% threshold anyway. But then there's a lot of good things about him where pretty much everything else I line up philosophically on. Not some of this stuff where, he sounds like a social justice warrior anytime you say, illegal immigrant, not that kind of stuff. But, all things considered, I do line up with him. I really hope he can get into the mix. But this is the prisoner's dilemma of, why somebody would possibly vote for Trump. And I think the Liberty Movement also needs to stop badgering people who are voting for Trump, who are part of the Liberty Movement, and focus on having Johnson clarify these comments or retract these comments, as opposed to, combating people like me who were big supporters of him. Even as recently as, July and June, whenever the Libertarian Party convention was, I had friends who were there and were really upset that he was in, and I was actually, pretty happy he was. But anyways, that's, where I'm coming from with all this, and hope you guys enjoy.